first live GWEN since COVID. We're quite excited. We'd like to welcome you and thank you for the commitment to come the next 3 Tuesdays as we explore the joy of missing out. How ironic, that's the topic coming out of COVID, the joy of missing out. So tonight, we're excited to have one of our members come up and join us, Dr. Benita Williams Varnado, if you'll come up, please. We're going to be learning a little bit more about Dr. V, who was born and raised in High Point, and she delights in taking care of women in the triad. She was born and raised, as I said, in High Point. She's a proud graduate of Hampton University and the, I wanted to say the Brock, and the Brody School of Medicine at East Carolina. She also completed her OBGYN residency at Tulane University in New Orleans, Louisiana. So that's all I'm going to offer up at the moment in way of introduction, because I think we'd like to learn more about Dr. V in her own words. So notice how quickly I automatically said we want to learn more about Dr. V instead of saying more about Benita. So many times as career women, we become our career. We are our career, and we're identified by our career. If you think back to a recent networking event, or when you've been to that airport and someone struck up a conversation, one of the first things they say is, "What do you do?" Or, "Tell me what you do." I guess that's a safe question. But tonight, Mrs. Benita Williams Varnado, heretofore going to be V, I'd like to ask you, if you would, to share some things about you personally with this group. What makes you happy? What are some of the things that ground you in your personal life? Where do you find joy? What are your hobbies? Tell us a little bit personally, if you would.
Did she just ask like 4 or 5 questions? She said joy.
And it gets worse.
And what makes you happy? Well, good evening, everybody. I'm happy to be here with you. This is an exciting group. I've been following what you all do, and Myrna invited me, and I'm glad to be a part. I go by Benita. I'm Dr. V as my day job. And when I think about what describes me, they have 2 phrases in New Orleans. Has anybody ever been to New Orleans? So they like to have fun. And so one of the phrases is laissez les bon temps rouler. Anybody know what that means?
Let the good times roll.
Let the good times roll. And so that's me. I like to have fun wherever I am. And the other one is something called lane yap. Anybody know what that means? Lane yap is a little something extra. And so I really feel like my mom has said ever since I was 3, she was like, you were just always the sweetest and kindest, and people liked you. And I just wanted to have fun. And so I have been on this journey of becoming a physician, which has really kind of consumed, you know, my life and my direction.
Personally, I want you to talk to us personally.
Oh, personally. So personally, it's really interesting, and we'll talk about how I pivoted. But I learned a lot about myself as I got ready to pivot, because I've always been very goal-oriented, and I didn't realize it. And if you want to be a physician, you have to be goal-oriented. Personally, I've always been a cheerleader. I was cheerleader in middle school and high school, and I got the School Spirit Award, and that's just my personality, just upbeat, which is why I think I was drawn to medicine and to take care of women. No, personally. No, personally.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let you off the hook, because we see what a struggle that is.
So,
because I'm going to ask you what drew you to medicine. I'm going to ask you what brought you to OBGYN.
You said what makes me happy.
But I was trying to, because we all become, here's a prime example. We become our career.
Right.
And that's who we are, is our career.
Right.
And we'd like, because we're not, we are an individual as well. We're all people beyond our career. But you just sort of helped with the challenge in that if we're not careful, we become our career. And what we want to do is make sure, because the book talks about having your home, your career, your family. So tell us what led you into medicine in the field of OBGYN.
So because I'm a little type A, I do want to answer her questions, right?
I will keep you on track. I will keep you on track.
So, yeah.
Do you have children?
So I do have children, and I just like people. I'm definitely a true extrovert. Always get energy from the group, having fun, and kind of out of the box at times. So, yeah, I do have children. I have a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, and I've been married for 17 years to my husband, Craig, who is from New Orleans. That's where we met. And so my hobbies, since I've pivoted, are gardening, which I love to garden. And I'm training for a half marathon that's in December.
Good for you. Good for you.
And if anybody's ever trained for a half marathon, at some point you get to the point where you're like, why am I doing this? Like a few days ago, I couldn't even walk right. But yeah, I've always been a reader too. So picking this book up and just reading it with the group and being able to talk about it is something that I haven't always gotten a lot of time to do. I've read a lot of stuff, but it hasn't been always just kind of light and non-educational. So
see how easy that was?
That was better.
When I got you back. Now, tell us what led you into medicine.
So my mom, she's a pediatric nurse, and she had these books like in the corner of her room. It was almost kind of like she was hiding it, like porn or something. And it was basically like how your body changes and what happens when you get your period. And I would go sneak and read these books, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, how does our body know to have a period like every month at the same time? And like when they showed like the embryo becoming a baby and then it becomes a human, I was just like, this is so fascinating. So I've always been really interested in what our bodies can do. And a funny story, I knew I was going to be a gynecologist when my friend in college, she was on the track team. And I hope this doesn't bother anybody, but everybody knows what a tampon is, right? Yes? So she had never put in a tampon. And so I'm in the next stall beside her trying to explain to her, okay, the vagina is a 45-degree angle. It doesn't go straight up and down. And I was like the only one that was willing to like help her with this. And I was like, I'm going to be a gynecologist.
It's rare. It's rare that we know so early really what we want to do and the path that we're going down.
Yeah.
You know, we all have a set of core values, those guiding principles that are with us at all times. And we may not have defined them yet, but they're within all of us.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, does Benita have a set of core principles or core values? Does Dr. V have a set of core values? Or is there a set of core values that's ever present with you that leads you down your path? And would you share some of your core values with us?
Absolutely. So I would not have said I had a core set of values until really last year. So I started working with a coach to kind of help guide me to where I felt like I was being called to go. And the first thing she said is you need some core values. And I came up with core values. It was God, abundance, and what was the other one? It just blanked. But it was God, abundance, and healing. Healing. Those are my three, and that was for my business. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I read the book that I said, oh, wait, I guess I can have my personal ones because that doesn't really define how I'm creating my mission and vision.
Right.
So let me see. I did write them down because I'm still working on it. I don't know. I mean, throughout my career, no one ever said, okay, you're going to be a doctor. What are your core values, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I'm still working on it. And
but you know, you recognize when you started to list your core values, because I said they're within us all, but we haven't defined them. Mm-hmm. You realize God was part of you. That was within you.
The whole time.
So I think we all have our core values. It's just nobody had ever asked you, and you hadn't really thought of them in that way, in that perspective.
Yeah. Let's see. So the ones I thought up from this
you
book.
Have them, yes.
Faith, fearless. I love that one. Fearless, God, compassion, connection, and out the boxness.
Oh, good.
I don't know.
Yeah,
If
that's
somebody
good.
can come up with a better word.
That's
but
good.
Out of the box. So.
Well, as you know, we're getting ready to delve into Tanya Dalton's book, The Joy of Missing Out. And there's a similarity, which I heard you referring to earlier, between the two of you, in that she found herself a successful career, a lot of people depending on her. From the outside looking in, looked like she had it all. But she found herself a miss, not really happy, feeling unfulfilled. So she set about trying to determine and discern what that feeling was coming from and where she wanted to go from there. And ironically enough, after 19 years, you've recently had a pivot or a shift in your business. So I'd like, in her case, she was unfulfilled. For you, I'd like to know what was behind the pivot or the shift in your business, and what sort of thoughts or motivations led you down the path that you're currently on.
That's an awesome question. So when I wanted to be a physician, I wanted to be a doctor, even back in high school. And as I said, I was really goal-oriented. But nobody ever told me to think about where's the husband going to fit in and where the kid's going to fit in. And so I got to okay, I'm a physician now and I'm practicing, and I had my first son, he's my only son, my first child as I was finishing up residency, and we were impacted by Hurricane Katrina. So our plans were kind of rerouted. But I just remember working very hard the first year, and I'm sure, I don't know if any other working mothers have had this experience, but he fell down and my husband was there, and he ran to my husband and not to me. And I was just like, oh, ouch, that hurts. But, I've worked, 12 years to get here. It's like, how are you just going to toss all that away? And eventually I became the breadwinner in our home because we decided that it was better for one of us, the parent, to be at home instead of a nanny. And so now that I'm the breadwinner, I'm like, really? I mean, like literally, her story was my story.
Exactly.
And so what led to that shift is I just was not happy. And it wasn't that I wasn't happy. I loved what I did, but I felt like I was confined to the exam room, to the labor room, or to the OR. And I'm running between all of those places. And I can only impact one woman at a time.
Right.
And then when I put that together with my family, my son, he's going to be gone in 3 years. He's going to college. And so after COVID hit, which was the interesting story,
right,
that our office was, like a lot of offices, we weren't open 8 to 5 anymore. We limited our hours, we limited our patients, and we were open 8 to 1, and I went home by 3, and we had Mancala, and we were playing Life, and we were doing all these fun things, and I was just like, it's really time for me to kind of pivot,
right,
and go another direction. But I had been working on that for, 4 or 5 years.
right.
To be a physician, nobody ever tells you, okay, you see your patients, that's wonderful, but then you have to write the note. Then you have to review the lab work. Then you have to do the callbacks. And for a lot of physicians, I am not the only one. Burnout is very real. And so you do your work, and it just makes me weep sometimes to think about what I would do. I go home to my second job, right? And then when the kids are kind of slowing down at 9 o'clock, I start doing my notes. And I'm up till 1 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I had to be on call, and I would be up at night, all night. And so I was just like, this is not the life that I want to live.
And change is fraught sometimes with fear. Sometimes even small shifts instill fear in all of us. So can you share with us some of the benefits and the risk of pivoting in the way that you did?
Absolutely. So I had some very real obstacles, like very real obstacles. Now I know that God could overcome them, but there's something, y'all know about malpractice insurance, like when people sue you for an obstetrician, it's like $40,000 a year. Like that's somebody's salary. And so when you finish practicing, you have to, there's something called tail insurance that will cover all of the lawsuits to come, if you have any. But that's called the golden handcuffs, because for some, it can be $70,000, $100 and some thousand, and they want it right then. And so I was like, how am I gonna, like, I don't have $100 and some thousand just sitting in the bank to write them a check. So how am I gonna leave? There's a long story you can listen to. I think it's episode 11 on my podcast. But I didn't have to pay the tail insurance. I got money back. I'm still getting money that's sustaining me through this. And so the benefit in pivoting is that I was scared. I did it anyway. And God showed me that he would carry me all the way through, like all the way through. To the point that, I mean, I thought, I didn't know what I was really going to have to do. But it's very interesting that you feel, one of my patients, and this is probably a better way to say it. She says, when you step out, God has a big safety net and he will catch you. And so the feeling of taking that step and knowing that I can do that and be fearless over and over again, because now I know that he will catch me. The risks are, I don't know what it is like not to have a schedule. Every little part of my career has been planned for me. You go to college, if you're pre-med, you take these courses. Then you take the MCAT and you take all these things. And it's like, I call it a treadmill. And you're on the treadmill, and at the end of the treadmill, you get off to your destination. So the risk for me is that I'm having to define this new journey, and honestly, I'm like making it up as I go along. At times, it feels like that. But I could not have stepped out on purpose without knowing that there's a higher purpose and a calling for me to do it.
And your core value of faith certainly came into play.
For sure.
Tanya talks in her book about so many of us are busy being busy. So I wonder, someone who has been very organized, been very specific, been very experienced, very professional, do you ever find yourself, her defining moment came in her kitchen. She said she had a to-do list a mile long, and she literally had something to do in each direction. She put her foot down, oh no, I'll do that later. She put her foot down, said, oh no, that can wait, and found herself in a circle. She collapsed in tears and said, you know, that's it. Do you ever find yourself busy just being busy?
Oh, all the time. And if my husband were here, he would say, absolutely, I am the queen of busy. Because now that I've kind of unplugged and pivoted, so I'm not working in the office all the time, but I somehow have found a way to put all of these things on my plate, which, you know, she talks about that in the book, but I'm busy with my church, I'm busy with school, and I'm busy, you know, with the podcast and doing all these other things. And so I don't know what it feels like to not be busy. Y'all are catching me at a time where, like, literally my last day of work was August 27th of this year. So I'm still really trying to figure this out. I don't know how not to be busy.
How to step off the hamster wheel.
I don't know how to, the treadmill is still going for
This book is going to be wonderful for you as well.
That's why I
because
signed up.
you are just like us. And again, we get caught up thinking it's just me, but we find that several very professional, very accomplished people suffer from the same things that we do. And you said from a young age, you were a goal setter. So let me ask you this question. This is my final question, and it's going to be a two-part question. Not to mention I started with 4 and 1.
I was going to say.
So this is going to be a two-part question. As a goal setter, we have a tendency to set our goals, define our goals, write our goals, check our goals off, replace it with a new goal. So do you still define your goals and physically write them down to use as a guideline? So that's part A. And then the second part of that is, how do you respond to the fact, if we are goal setters and we're checking it off and immediately writing a new goal so that we can check it off, how do we ever really recognize our accomplishment And how do we ever really know we've accomplished those goals and feel fulfilled?
So through this process, the last 2 years, I've had an accountability partner. Oh, y'all need to get you an accountability partner.
I agree.
I see some heads shaking. So I have a friend. She read the book. It's called The 12-Week Year. Have y'all heard of that? By Brian Moran. And so basically, you set so people have New Year's resolutions, and they'll say, okay, I want to lose weight by the end of the year. But instead of it being 12 months, you break it down into 12 weeks. And so every 12 weeks, you only have 3 goals. Right. And so we meet every week, every Sunday or Monday night to kind of go through our goals. But it's only 3.
Right.
And so part of the reason that I've been able to move towards to pivot and to start these other endeavors is because we were, as she says, we were focused.
Right.
We were really focused on what we had to do for 12 weeks. And I had someone who I would check in for, every week. I am a procrastinator, for sure. So if I have 7 days to get it accomplished, by day 5, I'm really starting to work on it. But by the end of it, I'm getting something done every week. And so, so I write it down. I check in. I don't know. I feel like, how will we know when it's accomplished? And I think that's a good question, because I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I'm at the mountaintop and I'm done,
Right. Do you take the time at least to enjoy the accomplishment?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah.
Before you start the next goal?
So that's tough for me, because it's just like, I'm out here trying. I've named myself, I'm the Harriet Tubman of healthcare. Because now I'm free and I'm coming back to get other people. I'm like, y'all are working too hard. Right. You are like not living your best life. Come join me, right?
Yeah.
And so it's all kind of, at the end of every 12 weeks, we do kind of celebrate. But it's always just, it all kind of goes together for me. Right. So I would say I do celebrate, but there's always, work to continue.
Sure. Benita, I'd like to thank you for spending time with us tonight. I'd like to thank you for sharing your complete self with us, and for, I think, giving us some great insight into the journey we're getting ready to start tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to get us started, I heard a great analogy not too long ago from Christy Wright, and she was saying how, when you go to the grocery store, and we go to the grocery store, we might have like 5 bags of groceries, or we might have like 500, but we're like, I got this. And then you start piling those grocery bags on your arms, and then you're trying to go in, and all of a sudden you got sauce going down the driveway and apples falling out, and it's just a hot mess, right? Completely. And at the end of the day, the real point there is we're not meant to carry all of that. We're not meant to carry that much. And I thought that was the perfect analogy for this. Like, when we're going through this, we're not meant to carry everything and to do everything. We have to work on our priorities. Tanya says productivity is not about doing more. It's about doing what's most important, right? Okay, so we've got to find that purpose. And she goes through your mission statement and your values, and honestly sat there like a deer in headlights going, a mission statement, like, I don't know. So, I don't know, does anybody else feel that way? Yeah, it's hard. So I feel like taking a step back and saying, okay, well, let's focus on our vision, right? And so don't worry about that whole technical thing of a mission statement. Let's worry about our vision. Where are we going? Where do we see ourselves? So we can kind of really fine tune our priorities and know where we're going. Because we don't have a focus, we're just kind of like floundering around and just trying to grab all the grocery bags. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to all close our eyes, okay? We're going to do a visualization, all right? I'm going to read the visualization. Just think through this and really visualize. All right, this is adapted from Rachel Hollis' Start Today Journal, so I didn't make this up. But it's really good, and I haven't found one as good as this. So, all right, let's start. Have you ever thought about the best version of you is like? Many of us imagine great things happening, but very few people spend the time to imagine in vivid detail what their best self would be like. Imagine that 5 years have gone by and you are living your best possible idea for yourself, and your life. Dream big. Don't put any restrictions on it. Don't overthink it. Just allow yourself to envision the most magnificent possible figure version of yourself. What is this version doing? What does she look like? How does she go about her day? How does she speak to people she loves? What kind of car do you drive? Are you a great cook? Do you love to read? Do you love to run? Get as specific as you possibly can. Where do you go on vacation? What's your favorite restaurant to eat at now that you're in a different part of your life? What kind of food do you consume? What does it feel like to go through your day? Are you optimistic? Are you encouraging to others? Are you joyful? Who is in your life? What's your week like? How do you treat people? How do they treat you? Let your dreams run wild. Are you happy? Are you energetic? Are you driven? Do you own a home? Do you have kids? Do you have grandkids? Are you married? What is the best of the best? What do you do for work? Do you work? Are you retired? What is the highest value that your future self holds? Is it family, loyalty, growth? Be specific as you can. Now, without a second of judgment or overthinking it, I want you to write down everything that you just thought of as fast as you can. I don't want you to forget any of it. There's no time to be realistic. All right, flip your paper over and there's places for you to write. All right, I'm going to give everybody 5 to 10 minutes to write it all out.